Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We're unpacking a massive shift in the financial landscape today. Look, for decades, the old real estate playbook was literally the simplest thing in the world, right? Buy a property, sit on your hands, wait, and just watch your wealth grow. But, as we're going to see, that exact foolproof formula, it's fundamentally broken for a huge segment of everyday investors. So we really need to look at what the actual alternatives are right now. There's this incredibly powerful quote from our source material that says, "Something quietly broke in the American housing market around 2022." And honestly, it hits the nail right on the head. We have this deep-seated cultural myth in America, don't we? Your parents bought a house, it went up in value, and boom, wealth created. It's been repeated so often, it just feels like a law of nature. But the reality is, that success was born from very specific economic conditions. And heading into 2026, those conditions have completely flipped. Clinging to that blind faith without a serious reality check, well, that can cost you dearly. To understand where we are, we have to look at two entirely different crises side by side. Remember the 2006 housing bubble? That whole mess was famously driven by wild, loose lending and crazy speculation. Fast forward to 2026, and the mechanics have totally shifted. We're sitting near historic affordability lows right now, but today's stress isn't about bad loans, not at all. It's driven by a massive, genuine supply shortage slamming right into high mortgage rates and sticky prices. So the financial pain feels a lot like 2006, but the engine driving the whole thing, completely new. Section 1. The 2026 math problem. So the root of this current math problem, it actually comes down to those 2 to 3% mortgage rates. When the Fed aggressively hiked rates starting in 2022, pretty much everyone thought home prices would just absolutely tank as purchasing power vanished. But they didn't. Why? It's the lock-in effect. Millions of homeowners are sitting on these ultra-low rates from 2020 and 2021, and they have literally zero financial incentive to sell. They are staying put. That keeps inventory incredibly low, which keeps prices stubbornly high. So as a buyer today, you're getting hit with a double whammy: high prices and high rates at the exact same time. Let's break down the brutal reality of actually buying a leveraged asset in today's market. You aren't just looking at the sticker shock of a high purchase price and a massive down payment. You've got to factor in that hefty current mortgage rate, plus escalating property taxes, surging insurance premiums. Oh, and you absolutely need maintenance reserves because, let's be real, water heaters only ever seem to explode on holiday weekends, right? Plus, if you aren't plunging toilets yourself, you're paying property management fees. Add all these line items up, and the financial weight of simply keeping the lights on every single month is just staggering. Here's the absolute kicker. What happens when you subtract all those carrying costs from the actual realistic rent you can charge? In most American markets today, that math leaves you with negative or barely break-even cash flow. And mind you, that is before a major repair or a month of vacancy. You're basically holding on to a leveraged asset that actively drains your wallet every month, and you're crossing your fingers completely banking on future appreciation just to scrape out a return. That is a massive, massive shift from the old passive income dream. Section 2. Enter the REIT. Okay, so what's the alternative? A real estate investment trust, or a REIT. This is basically a company that owns income-producing real estate. But here's the magic part. They are legally required to distribute at least 90% of their taxable income directly back to you, the shareholders. So instead of buying one single headache-inducing house, you're buying fractional ownership in massive institutional portfolios. We're talking apartment complexes, massive data centers, cell towers, huge industrial warehouses. You get the real estate exposure, and you get a direct share of that rental income, paid right out as dividends. Section 3. Head-to-head. Property versus REITs. Let's put these two in the ring and look at our first major difference: liquidity. With physical property, your massive down payment and all those closing costs are completely locked up, trapped. If you suddenly need that money, you're staring down a months-long sales process that is just loaded with friction, fees, and stress. Now contrast that with REITs. Your shares can be bought or sold in literally seconds through a standard brokerage account. You get instant liquidity plus an immediate diversification buffer across hundreds of properties, rather than betting the entire farm on one single building. But let's talk about leverage and control, because honestly, this is physical real estate's absolute superpower. With direct property, you can use a mortgage to control a $400,000 asset by putting maybe just $80,000 down. Plus, you have the power to force appreciation. You can roll up your sleeves, renovate that outdated kitchen, and push your rents higher. REITs, they just can't offer that individual leverage, and you have absolutely zero say over renovations. So if your whole strategy relies on maximum leverage and sweat equity, direct ownership wins this round, hands down. Next up, management requirements. Look, even if you hire out property management for a physical rental, you're kissing 8% to 12% of your gross rental income goodbye. And guess what? You are still going to be the one fielding calls about a leaking roof during a Tuesday night rainstorm. It is highly operational. REITs, on the other hand, have professional institutional management built right in from day one at massive scale. It is genuinely passive. You just sit back and collect the dividend without ever having to pick up a wrench or deal with a midnight tenant panic. To really bring all of this into focus, let's just look at the current yields side by side. Right now, quality REITs are throwing off pretty solid yields, generally ranging from 4% to 7% across various categories. Now compare that to a typical direct property purchase in today's market, which is often sitting right at 0%, basically just treading water and barely breaking even on a cash-on-cash basis. When you start factoring in the immense time, the sheer effort, and the massive concentration risk of owning one physical building, man, those 4% to 7% REIT yields start looking incredibly attractive. Section 4. Making your choice. Ultimately, making this choice really splits the ideal investor profile right down the middle. Direct property, it requires substantial upfront capital, often 80 grand or more, and a ton of operational effort. But it is completely unmatched if your game plan is forced appreciation and leverage. On the flip side, REITs require pretty much any starting amount you want, demand zero operational effort, and are absolutely best for liquidity and diversification. It's so important to remember that for physical properties, your specific local zip code matters more than anything else. But hey, it's not an either-or. Both of these vehicles can totally coexist within a smart, diversified portfolio.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final kind of provocative thought. Are you buying a rental property today because the math actually works in your local market, or are you doing it simply because your cousin made a killing doing it back in 2015? The world has fundamentally shifted, guys. The 2026 math is a completely different beast. Take the time, sit down, and run your own local numbers based on today's reality. Do it before your capital ends up making the decision for you.